Peace family, Queen here. In this video, this is going to be the first of many as it relates to this book, as well as he has a documentary on YouTube, and it's called The Great Taking. The author is David Rogers Webb. When I tell you that he has laid out in this wonderful masterpiece, is what I would call it, of the inception of the global financial issues, the narrative of why certain things have been put in place, not for your benefit, all right, and where this thing is really headed. You know, I'm not a doom and gloom type of person, right? Because there's so much opportunity for you to create financial abundance for yourself. So I'm not one of those people that preach doom and gloom. What I like to do is I like to point out the issues in our financial system. And I always say, thank the Most High for Bitcoin, right? Because Bitcoin ushered in the entire crypto industry, as well as now the entire DeFi space, right? So thank Jah that we have an alternative to this system that's crumbling right before our eyes. If you study the financial monetary history, right, from, you can go way back to the Roman days. You can really go back to Kemet. You can really go back to Kemet, they call Egypt, right? The Greeks went in, stole it, and all that, right? Whatever. But you can go back as far as that civilization. And when, excuse me, when fiat was introduced to the society, right? Fiat just basically means government decree. That's all what that means. That means that the government says this is the money that we're going to use, right? The money that you're using today, the fiat currency that you're using today, is not the same money that was used 100 years ago, right? So every 80, to 100 years, because fiat is, a system, a monetary system that really, the only thing backing it is the faith of the people, right? So it's not a solid thing that is backing it. So it's a government decree. And every 80 to 100 years, right, the fiat regime of the day, the flavor of the day, crumbles because it has nothing holding it up, right? So, long to the short, I'm going to just go through a couple of pages here in this book that I cannot put down. I watched the documentary, but I also wanted to get the book. So I purchased the book, and this thing, man, listen, I cannot put this thing down. It's just really, putting all the dots together, painting a clear picture for you, if you didn't already know, or, wasn't aware of why we are where we are. This is a really great read for you to really understand, because in my opinion, the majority of people don't understand why they need Bitcoin. They don't understand why they need Bitcoin. They think that, no, it's just another, it's just another means of payment, another currency that I could use. But I'm good with my fiat. I'm good with my stocks. I'm good with the traditional, financial world that I've been operating in. But the thing about it is, if you don't pull back the curtain and really understand what the end game is for the traditional financial system, you're going to be sitting in a place where you don't want to be, right? And so this is why I do what I do. This is why I put out, information I put out, emails to my email subscribers, not to, preach doom and gloom, but to get people to open their eyes up and to look behind the curtain and to really see what's going on. And then maybe that will spark a person that has been sitting on the fence, not getting into Bitcoin, not allocating their portfolio into the crypto industry, and taking ownership of their financial sovereignty. Because, when you continue on with the traditional financial system the way that it's been going, and you think they have your best interest at heart and everything's going to be okay, you're really leaving it up to someone else, right? You're leaving it up to someone else to take care of you and your family. And my question to you is, when has that ever worked out in your favor? When has that ever worked out in your favor where you completely outsource your abundance, your financial sovereignty, your well-being to someone else, and it has worked out in your favor? I can tell you the answer to that is never. It's never. One of the best pieces of advice that I received years ago from my mentor at the time, and a multiple billionaire, and what he shared with me is, he said, if you don't take care of your money, your wealth, your well-being. He talked about wealth monetarily as well as health. He says, if you don't take care of these two areas and know about these two areas better than anyone that you pay to assist you, right? So any doctor, any financial advisor, if you don't know it better than them, you will be taken advantage of. You will be taken advantage of. Point blank, period. So anyway, let's I'm going to start off here. Page 5 through page I'm going to read to you a little bit also. Page 5 through page 16 is worth the cost of the entire book. And it's interesting because in my Bitcoin book, I actually wrote about the FDIC and the Bank of England joint paper, because that was one of the things that really, when I really studied that and understood what that law meant, it freaked me out. It freaked me out. And I'm getting the same feelings with these pages here from 5 through 16 in his book. It freaks me out, but I'm covered because I've already made the leap from the TradFi system to the DeFi system, right? So anyway, let's dig in a little bit. So I'm going to blow this up here, right? And we're going to look at this, okay? Because you need to understand. This graph up here is talking about, it's a graph of the velocity of money from 1900 to current day, right? So he says here on page 5, please observe the extremely important chart in figure 1.1, which was prepared by Hoisington Management. For once, one can see a true underlying determinant of the sweep of history. A profound decline in VOM, which is velocity of money, so I'll say VOM, right, for short. VOM led to the financial panic of 1907, which was used to justify the establishment of the Federal Reserve System. The Federal Reserve Act was passed by Congress in the quiet days before Christmas 1913. Ferdinand was assassinated 6 months later. Following a brief recovery in VOM during the Great War, it collapsed further, leading up to the closure of banks and the confiscation of gold in 1933. VOM recovered somewhat into the Second World War and then collapsed to a low in 1946. Right, you can see that on the graph right here. Right, unprecedented until now. VOM has now contracted to a lower level than at any point during the Great Depression and World Wars. Okay, so you might be asking, what's the point, in this graph, right? Here's the point, this last sentence. Once the ability to produce growth by printing money has been exhausted, creating more money will not help. It is pushing on a string. The phenomenon is irreversible, and so perhaps announcement of the Great Reset has been motivated not by global warming or by profound insights into a fourth industrial revolution, but rather by certain knowledge of the collapse of this fundamental monetary parameter, the implications of which extend far beyond economics. Something has been planned for us, but not for the reasons you've been giving. How might we come to know something about the intentions of the planners? Perhaps by examining their preparations. So this next chapter, he goes into, I'm not going to read all of this, but I am going to read some of the things that I highlighted here so that you can understand. The end game, right, of the financial system is to create so much chaos, to legally rob you in every sense of the word, and then for them to introduce this solution, which is central bank digital currencies. Okay. The reason for that is because they tried everything that they could. They threw everything that they had at Bitcoin to try and destroy it, right? Every single narrative that you can think of. It's just early on, Bitcoin was just for people to buy drugs and for people to do illegal things and black market and this and that. That narrative didn't work. They tried it. They put that guy in jail for life. I can't think of his last name right now, but it's Ross Ulbricht, I think it is. And I can't, Silk Road. So, they try to make an example with this guy. They have all these other narratives. Bitcoin, mining uses too much energy and electricity. It's too complicated. It's this, it's that. They try everything that they could. They threw every single narrative that they could to try and destroy Bitcoin. Why? Because Bitcoin is just a set of algorithms, a set of different technologies, and at the end of the day, it's simply mathematics. Okay? It's simply mathematics. So because they could not destroy that, because they can't control it, right? They're now wanting to create something similar, right, that the people could utilize, and they want to spin the narrative in a way where it's going to be for your benefit, but at the end of the day, it's just another control mechanism. It's just another control mechanism, right? So please don't sign up for CBDCs. Please don't do that. Don't do that. It's nothing different than the traditional system right now, right? Your credit cards that you use, your bank account that you use, all of those are a form of central bank digital currencies right now, because they can be monitored, they can be tracked, they can be shut down, right? It can be censored, all of that. Whereas when you're talking about Bitcoin, right? And when I say Bitcoin, I'm also including, other cryptocurrencies, but, my allegiance is with Bitcoin. But with Bitcoin and the entire space, when you hold your own private keys, you have what's called a bearer instrument, right? A bearer instrument. Bitcoin, in my opinion, is, and I don't believe it's just my opinion, I believe it's a fact, that it is the only true asset that you can truly own that is the majority, can't say 100%, but it is decentralized to a point where it can never be shut down. That's the beauty of decentralization. True organic decentralization. That is Bitcoin, right? Nothing else competes on the network effects and the decentralization of Bitcoin. Nothing else competes. All right, so now this next part here, let's see where we are on time. All right, I don't want to make this too long. But he goes into the next chapter and he talks about dematerialization, right? So basically, let's see, where is... Okay, I'll read this part to you on dematerialization. This is on page 8. It says, in the late 1960s, something called the Banking and Securities Industry Committee, BASIC, had been formed to find a solution to the paperwork crisis. It seemed the burdens of handling physical stock certificates had suddenly become too great, so much so that the New York Stock Exchange had suspended trading some days. Lawmakers then urged the government to step into the process. The BASIC report recommended changing from processing physical stock certificates to book entry transfers of ownership via computerized entries in a trust company that would hold the underlying certificates. Excuse me. This trust company would develop the necessary computer and other systems. I happened to meet with network engineers of DTC 40 years ago in my first job of the school, right? So this dematerialization chapter is talking about how, back when, my great-grandmother would buy stocks, they would get an actual physical stock certificate in the mail showing you the ownership of that particular stock, right? Well, as you can see here from what I just read, they have, back in the 60s, flipped that to just being book entries, right? We all know what happens when, again, they created this so-called problem. Oh, there's too much paperwork. We have to streamline this and we have to make this easier. But no, this is just a part of the plan, right? Because now, with the paperwork crisis, it says, was this a paperwork crisis manufactured in order to provide an imperative for dematerialization? Consider that DTC did not begin operations until 1973 and that no significant degree of dematerialization was achieved for many years. However, somehow during this intervening period, stock exchanges continued to function in spite of escalating trade volumes without the elimination of certificates, especially with the aid of computerization. It could be done, and it was done. DTC eventually became the model for the Central Securities Depository and the Central Clearing Counterparty, the purposes of which will be explained later, right? Those are clearing houses, okay, for all stocks. You could say really all derivatives. All right, so now the security entitlement, okay? So got the dematerialization, right? Now let's look at the security entitlement. Now this is where this comes in, okay? So this right here, if you go and take a look at the Uniform Commercial Code, Section 8, 501, this was changed, right? This was changed without any type of talks about it, anything, yeah, it was just changed in the middle of the night, just like when the Federal Reserve was created, middle of the night, nobody knew anything about it. Patriot Act, same thing, how it happened, created middle of the night, nobody knew about it. All of a sudden you have rights taken away from you. So with this right here in chapter 3, I'm on page 9. It says the title of the chapter, Security Entitlement, okay? The greatest subjugation in world history will have been made possible by the invention of a construct, a subterfuge, a lie, the security entitlement, right? So now it goes down here, what I have highlighted says, well, let me just read this part to you. All right, he's giving an example here, right? Let's say that you have purchased an automobile for cash, having no debt against the vehicle. You believe that you now own it outright. Despite that, the auto dealer has been allowed by a newly invented legal concept to treat your car as his asset and to use it as collateral to borrow money for his own purposes. Now, the auto dealer has become bankrupt, and your vehicle, along with all the others sold by the dealer, are seized by certain secured creditors Sorry, let me read that again. Now, the auto dealer has become bankrupt. Your vehicle, along with all the others sold by the dealer, are seized by certain secured creditors of the dealership. Now, when we're talking about secured creditors here, he's not talking about, there's a whole movement back in the day. I used to teach some stuff on this back in the day with the UCC and changing your status to a secured party creditor. He's not talking about that. He's talking about institutions that are secured creditors, okay? Now, these secured creditors are able to seize, your vehicle with no judicial review being necessary, as legal certainty was previously established that they have absolute power to take your car in the event of the bankruptcy of the dealer. All right, so now I'm on page 10. In this whole paragraph I highlighted, it says, essentially all securities owned by the public in custodial accounts. What are all securities? That's your bank account, your checking, your savings, your money market account, your brokerage account, your stock account. That's everything in the TradFi world, in the traditional financial world. So essentially all securities owned by the public in custodial accounts, pension plans, and investment funds are now encumbered as collateral underpinning the derivatives complex, which is so large, an order of magnitude greater than the entire global economy, that there is not enough of anything in the world to back it. The illusion of collateral backing is facilitated by a daisy chain of hypothecation and rehypothecation in which the same underlying client collateral is reused many times over by a series of secured creditors. And so it is those creditors who understand this system who have demanded even more access to clients' assets as collateral. All right, and now I read this last part here, and then we'll wrap this video up. I'm gonna do more. I'm gonna do a series of videos on this book, because there's just so much stuff in here that hopefully, again, will spark your interest to do your own research, right? Because if you don't understand the problem, if you don't understand the end game, the narrative for the system, and what they're planning to do with you and your children's hard-earned labor, right? If you don't understand that, you think that you have all the time in the world. I'll get into Bitcoin. I'll get into DeFi. I'll get into cryptocurrencies. I don't know. People just sit. People are wired to be procrastinators. That's just a human trait. You're wired to just, not take action. And that's unfortunate, because, the writing has been on the wall, as far as I can see. It's been on the wall if you have been paying attention. And I guess the bells are not sounding and the alarm is not ringing, because it's not in the interest of them to sound any alarms or bells. Because this narrative and this plan, it wants to be, quiet and just slowly, the analogy they say, how do you boil a frog? You just, you turn the temperature up slowly, and then all of a sudden, the frog's being boiled. And that's kind of the way that I see, the financial system is all of a sudden people are going to be boiled, fried, and looking around wondering what the heck happened, right? So the last part here that I'll read says account providers, right? Account providers. So this is your Schwabs, your Merrill Lynch's, your B of A, your Wells Fargo, all account providers are legally empowered to borrow pooled securities without restriction, right? What are pooled securities? It's every single thing that you think you own. That's what it is. That's what it is. And then they take those pooled securities, right? And they hypothecate and they rehypothecate and they keep kicking the can down the road, right? And are using your so-called assets as collateral to pay debt, to line their pockets, to make their families richer and richer and richer. And guess what? To keep you poor and poor and poor and in poverty. Okay? So I'm gonna put a pin in it right here, right? So again, I'm not a doom and gloom type of person. I like to point things out. I am a nerd, and I love to read this type of information. I've always had a fascination with understanding money, understanding economics, and understanding what I could do to ensure that me and my family and those that are close to me are not wrapped up into a system that at the end of the day wants to see me in a bad situation, right? So the thing about this is that the whole game plan is to usher in central bank digital currencies. And to, at some point, we have to remember, every 80 to 100 years, every fiat currency that has ever existed, it died on the hill, and there was something new that took its place. And I think that something new that they're going to introduce is going to be central bank digital currencies, right? And so if you have an alternative to that, and you do have an alternative to that, it's just a matter of you, putting yourself in position to capitalize on that alternative, because you don't own anything on this side of the fence. On the traditional financial side of the fence, you don't own anything. You can't own anything legally. You can't own anything. I don't care if you feel like you've paid the last note or the last whatever on it. You don't own it. You don't own it. They're telling you right here in plain sight that everything that you think you own has been securitized and can be taken away from you with the stroke of a pen. The only way that you can own true assets is in the Bitcoin, crypto, DeFi space. That's the only way. Okay? So that's it for this video, family. Again, I implore you, go on YouTube, type in The Great Taking, and you can see David Webb's entire documentary on this book. If you really want to, dig in, I'd spend a couple of bucks and buy his book. It's a great read. It's a great read. I'm going to do more videos on this and go through the entire book here to do my best to help you all. Okay? But at the end of the day, it's up to you to take action. It's your, like I tell you, like my mentor told me, no one is going to see after your wealth better than you. See you in the next video.